Mansa Musa, the ninth king of the Mali Empire, was so rich that he destabilized the economy of a country by flooding its markets with gold. His rule was the economic peak of Mali's history, with salt and gold mines unbelievably thriving as he slowly expanded trade routes and made allies all over the world. This is the story of the Trillionaire King of Africa. Who is Mansa Musa? When Mansa Musa came into power in 1312, most of Europe was busy with civil wars and famines. But several Islamic and African empires were thriving, and Mansa Musa was responsible for bringing this wealth and prosperity to his own kingdom. Musa was born to Fagale and Kanku, both deeply entwined with the royal history of the Mali Empire. Fagale was the son of Abu Bakr, who was related to Sunjata, the first ruler or Mansa of the Mali Empire. At the time, the Mali Empire was involved in the trade of ivory, spices, silk, ceramics, and slaves, which kept the economy healthy and stable. The empire consisted of present-day Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania, Gambia, and of course Mali. Musa's ascension to the throne was not necessarily by lineage, though. The previous king, Muhammad ibn Ku, was a distant relative, but Musa was appointed as deputy ruler when Muhammad decided to launch an expedition to the Atlantic Ocean. The Mansa led this expedition himself and told Musa to take over until he returned. Muhammad, however, disappeared during this expedition, leaving Musa to crown himself as the new Mansa. But during his years as deputy, he wasn't exactly idle. Likely in his early 20s by this point, Mansa Musa took the throne, having already made plans for annexation and expansion, and a very expensive business trip. Mansa Musa's reign. It began with him taking control of Timbuktu and retaking control of Gao. This gave him access to the Mediterranean and West African coast, two very popular routes for trade. But it didn't stop there. In fact, Musa's early reign was spent in continuous conflict with neighboring cities, all in an effort to expand his empire and establish his rule. While in Cairo in 1324, Mansa Musa told someone he'd conquered 24 cities and the surrounding districts. Mali had access to one of the world's largest sources of gold in the Niger River basin and access to salt mines in the Sahara Desert. These became the bread and butter of the empire and made the already rich kingdom even richer under Mansa Musa. But through it all, the conflicts, the trade route establishments, and the taxing of miners and traders, he was plotting the most extravagant pilgrimage the world had ever seen. This pilgrimage would turn the world's eyes on Mali and help it flourish further, before a fall from grace fueled by greed. Mansa Musa's Mecca pilgrimage. The pilgrimage of Mansa Musa is perhaps his most famous story. Musa was a devout Muslim, and his pilgrimage to Mecca, known as the Hajj, significantly raised his profile across North Africa and the Middle East. It was, in a way, a business trip to make new connections and allies along his journey. Before he set out for his Hajj, Musa placed his son Muhammad in charge of the empire until his return. The pilgrimage took place between 1324 and 1325, covering a distance of 2,700 miles. Musa's procession included 60,000 men dressed in brocade and Persian silk. Among them were 12,000 slaves, each carrying gold bars weighing 4 pounds, or 1.8 kilograms. The entourage also included heralds in silk who managed the horses and carried gold staffs. Musa ensured the entire group, including the animals, were well provided for during the journey. The caravan included 80 camels, each loaded with 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust, which Musa generously distributed to the poor along his route. As you can guess, Musa's journey wasn't just about his religious devotion. It was about establishing the reputation of his wealthy empire. He wanted traders, kings, and workers alike to desire to be associated with him in his kingdom. He reportedly even constructed a mosque every Friday along the way and exchanged gold for various souvenirs in cities like Cairo and Medina. His arrival in Cairo in July 1324 was marked by a 3-day encampment near the pyramids of Giza. His entry into the city was delayed due to a protocol disagreement with the Mamluk Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad over whether Musa should bow in his presence. Although Musa initially resisted, he eventually complied, clarifying that his bow was intended for God alone. Despite the rocky start, the relationship between the two leaders warmed. leading to exchanges of gifts and information. Musa's stay in Cairo ended up lasting 3 months, during which he became friends with the local governor and shared quite a bit about Mali. He left Cairo with his entourage on October 18th, but not before severely hurting Cairo's economy with his large donations and shopping sprees. The evidence comes from Arabic writer al-Umari, who visited Cairo 12 years after Mansa Musa and wrote, "The people of Cairo earned incalculable sums from him, whether by buy and selling or by gifts. So much gold was current in Cairo that it ruined the value of the gold dinar for a period of over 12 years." Though out of goodwill, Mansa Musa's generosity created a massive 10-year gold recession, caused hyperinflation, and almost impoverished the city for the next decade. Was this the plan all along? Perhaps not, but it did take Cairo some time to recover from the gold shock. While in Mecca, Musa continued his acts of generosity, and though Mecca and Medina were not as badly impacted as Cairo by the gold influx, it did cause some damage to the economy for some time to come. After completing perhaps the most famous Hajj of all time, Musa's journey back to Mali was not an easy one. His entourage faced bad weather, maybe due to his displays, also a fair amount of robberies. By the time he reached Cairo again, he was financially strained, so he began borrowing money and selling the goods he acquired during his travels. During this time, he met and was impressed by the Andalusi poet Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, whom he persuaded to come back to Mali with him, along with other scholars he picked up in Mecca. And then the real work began. Establishing the empire. Mansa Musa wasn't down on his financial luck for long. The first thing he did was establish trade centers in cities like Timbuktu and Gao to facilitate commerce. He also made the wise decision to invite 4 sharifs from his trip to Mecca and settle them in Mali, all in an effort to attract more Muslim traders. Sharif is a title given to those believed to be the direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. A pretty esteemed title, of course, and Musa's strategy worked. Next, he knew educating his people and inculcating good religious values was the best way to ensure the growth of his kingdom, and so he invited several scholars, architects, and artisans from Cairo, Andalusia, and other Islamic states and commissioned the construction of schools and mosques around the region. He is best known for the Jinguereber Mosque and Senghor University in Timbuktu. Other universities created under his patronage teach law, astronomy, mathematics, and Islamic studies, among other subjects crucial to the growth of a country. But in addition to educational pursuits, he wanted his empire to reflect a rich culture of art and traditional values, which led to the creation of beautiful palaces, audience chambers, and solid infrastructure in cities like Niani. This urbanization led to even more schools and mosques in densely populated towns. With time, the cities of Timbuktu and Gao also saw major expansions and fortifications to support trade and scholarship. Thanks to that, Timbuktu became the very center of trade, culture, and Islam. These markets attracted people from Egypt, Hosseland, around modern-day Nigeria, and other African kingdoms. Soon enough, news of Mali's wealth and abundance reached southern Europe, inspiring traders from Venice, Granada, and Genoa to add Timbuktu to their travel itinerary. To this day, you'll find mausoleums, schools, mosques, and libraries, all built by Mansa Musa, that stand as monuments to Mali's incredible history. So, what brought this golden age to an end? Decline of the Malian Empire. Mansa Musa worked well into his late 50s and early 60s to develop and grow his kingdom. While the exact date is unclear, his death likely happened in 1337 due to natural causes. He left behind a shining legacy, but it didn't stay for long. Mansa Musa was succeeded by his son, Mangan I, but he was overthrown shortly after by Musa's brother Suleiman, who ruled from 1341 till 1360. And this was the beginning of a conflict that would crumble the hard-earned empire. First and foremost, weak leadership and the infighting between the successors slowly caused Mali to lose control over their trade routes to emerging states like the Songhai Empire. Seeing the unstable nature of the royal family, neighboring kingdoms like Masi saw their chance to break away from the Malian kingdom, and during this chaotic time, other trade centers cropped up, reducing Mali's commercial monopoly. It seems odd that nobody thought to invade the empire during this time. but it's also possible that the royal family was sowing the seeds of its own destruction, and invasion seemed unnecessary at that point. And so bit by bit, external and internal factors chipped away at Mansa Musa's legacy. So what's the lesson here? Mansa Musa's reign was driven by a clear and ambitious vision for the Mali Empire, focusing on expanding trade, boosting the economy, and fostering cultural exchange. This forward-thinking approach inspired his people and propelled the empire to new heights. And you can emulate this by articulating a compelling vision that motivates your teams. A clear direction unites stakeholders, fuels collective purpose, and empowers you and your team to contribute to a shared success story. Musa was a master of strategic diplomacy, creating alliances and trade partnerships that strengthened Mali's global influence. In today's interconnected world, it's easier than ever to make connections, and you have to use that to build strategic partnerships that result in the success of both parties. But beyond grand projects, Mansa Musa invested in his people through education, infrastructure, and cultural institutions, creating an environment where individuals could thrive and contribute their talents. This technique is valuable and effective even today. By developing your team members, offering mentorship, and recognizing their achievements, you can unlock your team's full potential and cultivate a culture of innovation and excellence. Mansa Musa's example is a brilliant and timeless one to follow. And those who can invest in their people, connect well, and adapt to changing tides well are honoring his legacy.